So in the previous video, what we did was we created two custom objects, a Joe Child and a Joe Dad custom objects, and then we connected them together manually uh, and to create a linked list. And just to give you a diagram of what a linked list looks like is you have a custom object with its data. In this case, it's just first and last name. And then you have another attribute in the object which points to another object. So in this case, we had Joe Senior, right, whatever his name was, and then the attribute was child, and it pointed to Joe Junior. Okay. And so what you're going to be doing in the assignment is creating a bunch of items like you did in the last assignment, but you're going to be connecting one item to the next item to create a linked list. And the challenge is being able to do this not manually, but just create a function that will create each custom object and then append it to the end of the list. So you have to have some kind of algorithm that not only after the custom object is created, after the item is created, can find the end of the linked list and append the next custom object or item onto it. And so that's what I was going to show, what I'm showing you today in this code right here. And effectively, to begin with, we have, let's just demonstrate. We can go, as soon as this, we're creating the first item in the linked list, this one right here. As soon as the code is run, we're creating this first item. But then we can append new ones, so append foo to the item. And now we have, if we traverse the list, we can see that we have boo and then foo. And then we can go maybe goo, append it to the list. And if we traverse the list, we get boo, foo, goo, maybe moo, append a list. We can clear the list, traverse it, we get boo, foo, goo, moo. Okay, or let's just do it one more time from the top. If we refresh the page and then go clear it, traverse list, the first item in the list is created, this one, right? And then we can add new ones to it, so we're going to append foo to it. And then we get boo foo, maybe goo, append a list, clear it, and we get boo foo goo. So boo foo goo, effectively we made a linked list where boo is the first item in the list, goo is the second, and then whatever the third one is, right? Boo foo goo. So boo, foo, goo, and they're connected. So how do we actually do that? The actual code that we're running to create this is pretty succinct, but at the same time it's more complex than anything you've seen so far. So let me go through it quickly. First, this part should be pretty easy. This is pretty much effectively just like the person object we saw before. You have your attribute, and then you have another attribute which is pointing to the next custom object that you're trying to connect it to. And just like in the previous video, we just had this part of the code really, and then everything else we just instantiated manually. But what we have here is another function that we can do, which will make these nodes for us and then connect them. And so we have this single linked list function, which has an attribute called this head, where we're defining the beginning of the list, which is right here. This is the beginning of the list. And then we're instantiating the node, which is this up here, right? And we're just giving it a value, okay? And we have some methods down here. We're not going to look at them right away, but then what we have here is a new linked list down here, okay? So we're again instantiating this function. And as soon as we instantiate that function, it creates the head node, effectively this, as soon as it's run, because it has that attribute. So this attribute instantiates itself this object here. So if you just look at this code and this code here, we can see when we start this, when we run this JSBin, the first thing that's output is the actual the first node in the linked list. Yeah, it's outputting this. This is what's being output to the console. So what's being output to the console here is we create the linked list, but since it only has one node in it right now, that's what's being output is this object, right? Which has this as the attribute, but the next attribute is empty because we haven't appended anything yet to that head node. But now let's append foo to that head node. We're going to append it to the list. Okay. And how did we actually do that append? And just to demonstrate that the append worked, I appended it, and now I can traverse the list, and I get the boo value and then the foo value. But how did that actually happen? Well, when I hit append to list, you can see that it actually accesses, it runs the append method of the linked list, which is this, okay? The append method is here. And so the append method is being called, and the node value, which is foo, is being input in the method, and then a new node is being created right here, just like it's being created up here. Okay, and then the challenge is being able to append it to the head node. So what has to happen next is it has to find the tail, and so this method is called, and I'll go into it in a bit, the tail is returned, and then you can go tail.next and then append the new node to it. And in this case, of course, because there was only one node in the linked list to begin with, e.g. this one that with boo, the head is effectively the tail. So when we add the new node foo, we're appending it to the tail, which is the head, but then the new tail becomes foo. So to find the actual tail, this is what's run, right? We're calling find tail, and what it does is it passes in this dot head, okay, the head of the linked list, and that's passed into the method, and then it looks at the node that was passed in, and it sees whether the attribute of that node is null. If it is null, which it is when it's just the head, when there's only one node in the linked list, it would return the current node back up here saying, okay, so the head is the tail. But otherwise, if there's multiple nodes in the linked list, then next won't be null, and it goes down to here, and this gets a little tricky. What it does is it actually calls the find tail again, find tail method again recursively, see, right here, and passes in the next node in the linked list. And so it does that over and over again recursively until it gets to the end of the under the linked list, and then it returns that back up here. So your job in this assignment is to really sort of go through this, step through this code very carefully so that you understand it really well. You understand what a linked list is and what a recursive call is. And then you just have to modify this a little bit to make it work for the assignment. And if you actually look in the background right here, I actually give you step-by-step instructions on how to repurpose that code to make it work, to make it modify the item list assignment. Okay, thanks for watching.